The artifact mods in Season of the Deep for Arc subclasses are so incredibly powerful. With Grandmaster Nightfalls just around the corner, it got me thinking, what was I going to end up running on day one? Now we know that Lightblade is on Tuesday, and the last time that came around, I was basically just running Invis. However, I really dislike running that. I think it's super boring, and so I figured I would give this a shot. Now, real quick, before we get into the build video, we are so incredibly close to the goal of 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. If you learn anything from today's video or just enjoy it overall, please consider subscribing. Now, I'd like to touch on the artifact mods that impact the Arc subclass real quick, because those are what got me originally thinking that this would be the move. Now, just from left to right, we have Electric Armor, which states that you stay amplified longer while your Arc subclass is equipped. I believe the title of that one got mixed up with this one here, because Amped Up goes with Amplified and Electric Armor goes with Damage Resistance, but either way, this states that you gain damage resistance while amplified. Those two work really well together because you're essentially just extending the amount of time that you have amplified, and with that, you get the extra damage resistance. Now, Thunderous Retort is huge, and I'm going to be pairing this with Star Eater Scales and the Gathering Storm Super. This states that it grants bonus arc super damage if cast while critically wounded or while amplified, and it lasts until the end of the super activation. We are solely going to be banking off of being amplified. I really don't like the idea of getting into a situation where I'm critically wounded in something like GMs. Now on the last column, we have Shock and Awe. Arc Final Blows while you are amplified summon a burst of lightning that damages and jolts targets. This is huge for ad clear, and it can be paired with Arc weapons. Really anything that you want to run Arc works really well with this. But I personally like to use it in unison with Combination Blow, because then I still have the freedom to run whatever energy weapon I want and whatever heavy weapon I want. Pairing this with something like Thunderlord or Aikilos SMG could prove really strong. And the last one on here is Lightning Strikes Twice. After throwing an Arc Grenade, gain increased grenade recharge for a short time. Arc Final Blows extend the duration of this benefit. I mentioned earlier we're running Gathering Storm. I pair the combination of Gambler's Dodge with Combination Blow. You essentially dodge and then melee, blow everything up. Now, this was recently suggested to me by a friend. The Flashbang grenade causes blind, which does stun unstoppable champions. And that can be paired with Spark of Shock, so it makes that same grenade jolt the target, which ends up being anti-overload. You essentially get a 2-for-1 grenade that can stun unstoppable champions and overload champions, assuming that you can hit the shot. They do bounce a little weird, and I'll definitely need some practice with it to figure out the best ways to hit the target. Now, I like to run Flow State and Lethal Current. Flow State states that defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. While you are amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, you are more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. And with Lethal Current, after dodging, your next melee attack has increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates a damaging aftershock. Damaging any jolted target with melee attacks also blinds them. So all of these different pieces come together to create Jolt and Blind, basically on demand. I already mentioned Spark of Shock. With Spark of Resistance, while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. This is going to proc basically all the time if you're going for any sort of melee build at all. And this will all stack with that artifact mod giving you additional damage resistance while amplified. Spark of Brilliance, defeating a blinded target with precision damage causes a blinding explosion. This helps just if I'm going to be throwing that grenade in and going for that combination blow that causes blinding and basically everything's going to be blinded, we might as well add this in. That'll give us a little bit of extra damage to targets in the area. And the last one is Spark of Feedback. This one makes me a little bit nervous, I'm not going to lie. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. There's a lot of stuff in GMs that if you get punched by, you're just going to die instantly. But I could use the extra resilience here. Maybe it'll help me out. Now, because I can always dodge and get my melee back, and because my melee always gives me my dodge back, most of the mods that I chose to run here are based around getting my grenade energy back as fast as possible. Just want to make a quick shout out to Powerful Attraction. This mod has been super fun in combination with things like Recuperation and Better Already. It essentially gives you a worm hat dodge. And since I'm creating orbs anytime that I go for a combination blow melee, I can hit that and then immediately go for the dodge, which gives me that health regen. And I also get the health regen from the subclass itself. Now, so far I've mentioned ways that I can stop unstoppable champions and that I can stun overload champions, but I have not mentioned anything specific about anti-barrier. As you may have noticed, the only option is anti-barrier auto. And what better auto rifle for anti-barrier than Quicksilver Storm? This thing is a monster, as I'm sure you have realized if you've used it even once. The energy slot is subject to change. This is the specific one that I was using in today's video. And the two weapons in the heavy slot that I will be defaulting between are Apex Predator with bait and switch and Cataclysmic with bait and switch. Now, obviously, there may be different overcharge weapons and different surges, so I may decide to run something else in that heavy slot. But both of these options work incredibly well against champions, and I expect them to be strong no matter what the overcharge is. As I mentioned earlier, I'm sticking with Star Eater scales for that extra damage when I pop my super. Just a quick side note, it is incredibly depressing that there are 3 extra stats here in recovery, and I'm missing that tier 4 by 1 point. I don't really care about the melee cooldown because of my dodge, but still, it's gross to look at these numbers. I stream every day but Tuesdays and Thursdays at twitch.tv/strasner. We will definitely be running some GMs come this week's reset, and I'm excited to see if this build works out as well as I think it will.